So the maxim 3, fix your goal, which should be complete oneness with God. Rest not till the ideal is achieved. Now, the maxim 3 is about the goal. So generally, they'll give you match the following regarding what is this maxim about. So you need to know what is the main theme of that particular maxim. If you know the main theme, then you will be able to, what do you say, identify and match the following correctly. It's very essential for everyone to fix this thought at the very outset upon the goal which he has to achieve, so that his thought and will may pay his way up to it. This is what we call as Sankalpa Shakti. We need to utilize our thought power to fix up a goal. And when we fix a goal and we allow our thought power to move in that particular direction, all the impediments in the path will be cleared off. And when you put a will behind it, it becomes even more stronger. So there is the thought power, there is the willpower. When the thought power and the willpower gets yoked on to the goal, then all the impediments on the path will get cleared in due course of time by itself, by the force of the will and by the force of the thought power. That's why it's very, very important to kind of fix the will. Today morning, there was one candidate who had come and who had made the sankalpa not to apply for the SNP 3. So I was just telling her that if you want to change your life, design your destiny, you have to change the sankalpas that you are making. By changing the sankalpas that you are making, you change your destiny. If we put our thought power behind a sankalpa which is going to hold us back, we will be held back and we cannot change our destiny. If we want to change our destiny, we have to put the sankalpa or the thought power behind a particular suggestion. And that's very, very important. A positive sankalpa will always give you positive results in the end. So here we are actually making the sankalpa of the goal. And we are aligning our thought power towards the goal, backed by the willpower. There are three things: the goal, the thought power, and the willpower. Just remember these three things. It has been observed that those on the path of spirituality who did not fix the final state of their goal have definitely remained short of the mark, because before arriving at the final point, they mistook one or the other of the intermediate state to be the final point of reality and stopped there. Thus, they suffered merely for not having fixed their goal. Even in worldly matters, as long as a person does not keep his object in view, his efforts are never so intensified so as to ensure success. It is an admitted fact that a boat cannot ply direct to its destination unless the helm is applied to it. Treating this human form as a boat and the space in it plying in as the ocean of spirituality, it is but essential to put up the helm in order to be able to ply through the vast ocean successfully. In the spiritual field, the helm is our strong determination which helps us to steer us on to the destination. That you can underline. In the spiritual field, dash is the strong determination. Helm is our strong determination. There may certainly be countless worlds or places, but the strength of our will and confidence helps us to overcome all of them and proceed on straight to the destination. Now, since our eyes are fixed upon spirituality, we take up the ideal which is the highest, which can be nothing but that associated directly with the absolute. Thus, to reach the infinite absolute is one of the primary duties of man. But as long as the goal is not fixed in our thoughts, it is very difficult to complete the journey successfully. Divine help comes, no doubt, but only when the Supreme is convinced of the devotee's earnestness of purpose. When the reaction creates a stir in the infinite, it indicates that he has concentrated his thought in the great being. This brings to our view the example of the lover and the beloved. It means that the distance between the devotee and the Lord is reduced and the idea of remoteness begins to fade away. Our nearness goes on increasing up to the final limit when the very feeling of aloofness having merged in the reality becomes completely extinct and assumes the form of a latent motion that existed at the time of the creation. In this way, our merging in the state becomes permanent and lasting. Our swimming in the infinite ocean now starts, which brings us to the real life, which comprises the influences of the ocean we are now swimming in. It is thus clear that the firmness of the will and the determination to reach the goal helped us to arrive at the destination, with the result that we got firmly established in the final state. How this most difficult problem was so easily solved by the virtue of correctness of our goal and firmness of determination may not now be difficult to understand. Our intention to reach the goal promoted our efforts, and since the ideal was the noblest, the interest for it went on increasing till it developed into a strong craving. Then we began to feel impatient for it. When we get into this habit, the tendencies of the mind are diverted towards it with full vigor. Thus, we come to the conclusion that for the attainment of the objective, we have to create in us intense longing or craving or extreme impatience, which forces our passage onto it just as the latent motion did at the time of creation. The only difference is the latent motion proceeded in the external way at the time of creation. We are proceeding in the internal way. That's all. That's the only difference. Otherwise, the force is still the same in both of them. But anyway, it's a very short maxim. But the importance is about the need for fixing the goal, putting our thought power and willpower behind it with full determination. That's all. Any questions on this?
Brother, I was
Upabraj, ಹೇಳಿ. One at a time. Go ahead.
Brother, I wanted to know, I think, what is the difference between thought power and willpower, brother?
They are two different things. Just for the sake of your understanding, just keep this in mind. Will is related to the soul, and thought is related to the mind. That's all. Just at one level, you can understand this as two different things. Thought is related to the mind, will is related to the soul. That's it. If you can remember these two things, then gradually, as you progress spiritually, you will work out the difference very clearly between these two. Okay. Now, the thought power, as we progress through our meditation and progress higher and higher, the need for the thought gradually goes away. What are thoughts? Thoughts are nothing but the wave of the vibrations of the soul which traverses through the samskaras, rises to the surface of the mind as thoughts. So there are two things for you to get a thought. You need to have samskaras, and secondly, the soul should be vibrating to get rid of the samskaras. Then you can get the thoughts in the mind. So if the samskaras are removed totally, then there are no thoughts. If the soul kind of calms down or settles down or becomes very peaceful and it reaches a non-vibrational state, so to say, then there are no thoughts. However, even under those conditions, the will be there. The will is something, it's not that God created based on a thought. He created the condition because of his will. There is a will behind God's creation. Now, that will is what we actually gain alignment to, the divine will, when we enter into the central region. And a person who gets aligned fully with the divine will is called as a Brahmanishta. We will probably read that, or you probably might have already covered that. When a person gets aligned to in the central region, they actually become very strong-willed people. In other words, their willpower is now, aligned to the divine will. When that becomes, then we say that this person has become a Brahmanishta. Brahmanishta means an unfailing will. That is what it means, Brahmanishta state. An unfailing will. Now, remember one thing, these people do not have an individual will at that level because the mind has become extinct by that. They can only will what the divine wills, and that manifests through them. That's all that happens. So the will is something and thought is something else. Ultimate. And Babaji has written about how the thoughts arise in one of his complete works. I think maybe fifth or sixth volume of complete works of Babaji. So this is the only one, and he's only written it in 2-3 sentences. It's a very small paragraph, 2-3 sentences. There he explains how does the thought arise. As long as the samskaras are there, the soul vibrates intensely to get rid of the samskaras. The soul wants to be free of the samskaras. That's its very nature. But now it is covered with samskaras. The soul vibrates to get rid of the samskaras. Now when it vibrates, the vibration travels through the samskaras. And when it travels through the samskaras, it raises up to the surface of the mind as thoughts. So if you just remember this particular perspective, it will be very easy for you to work out. Now, if somebody is actually becoming less and less, they're getting less and less thoughts during meditation, it's a good sign that their system is getting purified. The samskaras burden is now coming down. That's a very good sign. Now, it's not like they are suppressing the thoughts. They're just allowing the mind to be, but still the amount of thoughts that they're getting is now gradually coming down. That's a good sign that the load of the samskaras are decreasing. Is that okay, sister?
Yes, brother.
I think I've
Thank
given
you.
you enough indications.
Yes, brother.
Brother, very nicely told, sir. Brother, thank you very much.
No problem. ಸರಿ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ 4ಗೆ. ಸೊ ವಿಜಯ್
Brother, brother, one more thing. I feel when we do cleaning also, when we apply the willpower, the same way the thoughts are, the samskaras are getting rid of from our body there, from our mind.
Exactly. But only thing is, there we don't focus on the thoughts. When we do the cleaning, we bring our attention onto the back. So we don't necessarily focus on the thoughts at that time. But during the meditation, automatically the thoughts raise up to the surface because the samskaras are getting cleaned. So we can actually vividly feel the effect of the thoughts during the meditation rather than during the cleaning. But however, after the cleaning is over a period of time, you will recognize that the amount of thoughts that is coming in the mind also comes down if you do regular cleaning.
But brother, when we do cleaning, when you apply the thought to go we are removing the samskar.
You apply the willpower.
When you apply the willpower.
Willpower is different, thought power is different. I just now explained.
Huh.
You start with the sankalpa, with a thought power, a suggestion that I'm going to do the cleaning. You end the cleaning with another suggestion or sankalpa. Now, these are the sankalpas are the thought powers. But during the course of the cleaning itself, you apply the willpower to hasten the cleaning.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
You don't again apply the sankalpa shakti to hasten the cleaning. That's not what you write. If you write that, the answer will be wrong in the exam also. You apply the willpower, ichha shakti, not sankalpa shakti. Sankalpa shakti is different, ichha shakti is different. In Kannada, you use the word ichha shakti. In English, we use the word willpower. Now, in other words, how do you put the willpower is another question. That I will leave you to ponder on. How do you apply the willpower then? So, and many times when people want to apply the willpower, no, they actually apply more force. Thinking that more force application is actually putting that willpower. It's not about putting the force. When I explained that the willpower is related to the soul, where is the soul? The soul is in the heart. You actually get fully involved in the cleaning process. When you are involved in the cleaning process, both at the level of the mind and the heart, the mind helps you to make the sankalpa shakti and then you start and end the cleaning process. When you put the heart behind the process, that adds the willpower to the cleaning process and that intensifies the cleaning. So just keep that in mind.
That means we have to be alert, fully alert we have to do.
Exactly. Fully alert, fully aware, fully attentive to the cleaning process and not gradually drift into meditation. That's what most people do. They drift into meditation. They start the cleaning process within 5-10 minutes, they go into the lapse into meditation. And that's when the cleaning process will actually be, what do you say, inadequate or not done properly. So they slow down in terms of their journey.
And one more small clarity. We feel that sensation that something is going on that at the back of our suppose if in 5 minutes or 10 minutes that sensation stops, is it that our cleaning has been finished, or
No.
is it compulsory that we have to do like 20 minutes to 25 minutes or 30 minutes? What is it?
We have never spoken in any literature about the sensation. Please remember in mind.
Sensation means that
1 minute, sister. 1 minute. Please listen to the answer fully, then you can clarify.
Okay.
Have you ever read in any cleaning process about any sensation?
No.
No. So don't get confused. What are we supposed to feel? We are supposed to feel some degree of vacuity, lightness that is developing within us. That is a real sign of the cleaning process being effective. The lightness that you feel, that is what you are looking for. You are not looking for the sensation at the back. You might feel the sensation, you might not feel. Some people might feel the back is getting heated up during the cleaning process. Some people might feel that
Hmm.
some waves are going out from the back during the cleaning process.
Hmm.
They are all different sensations. That is not what we are
Hmm.
looking for. What we are
Okay.
specifically looking for, which is what is told in every cleaning method, is that you are looking for a degree of lightness being felt in the
Hmm.
heart. Once you feel that the degree of lightness is firmly established, then you start inviting the divine current from the front.
Hmm. Okay.
So don't get confused with the sensation. Some people might feel the sensation, some people might not feel the sensation. That is
Hmm.
nothing to do with whether your cleaning has been effective or not.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank
Okay. Shall we go to the maxim 4 now? Simplify your life so
you.
as to be identical with nature. Very simple, one line. But it is a very, very vast, what do you say, maxim, which has a huge implication on our life. In fact, Babuji, we were reading in the morning yesterday, and Babuji said there are two signs of divinization, which I told yesterday. One, increase in the subtlety indicates that your system is getting divinized. Second, you become more and more simple in your approach to life. That also indicates that your system is getting divinized. These are the two signs that he says are sure short signs of divinization of the system. Okay, this completes in the complete works volume 1 only. Maxim 4. The topic implied in this maxim is a bit difficult to explain. Simplicity is the very essence of nature. That's underlined. That's a 1 mark question. It is a reflection of that which existed in the absolute in the latent state. It promotes growth. So simplicity promotes growth. Please underline, link up these two. If we are simple, we can actually grow maximally. If we are very complex, we can grow very minimally. So please remember it. Simplicity and growth, they go together hand in hand. It can be aptly described as the quintessence of the ultimate. Again, this is also another 1 mark question that you will get. Quintessence of the ultimate. This is in fact the life substance of nature. What is the life substance of nature? Simplicity. Activity starts from this point, which is verily the very origin. All that falls within the sphere of the Maya, where the people mostly abide in and pursue their activities accordingly. In other words, it is this one that led to the composition of forms. So activity starts after the simplicity has given way. Now, which point does the simplicity actually peak? At the 12th point. So as we move down from the 12th point, the activity intensifies. At the 12th point, what is there? It is just vibrations at the finest level. In the central region, you have the vibrationless vibration. As you come out of the central region into the 12th point, you have vibration, very fine vibrations, which is a bit grosser than the vibrationless vibration state. That is what is there at the 12th point. But as we come down from the 12th point further, the vibration now intensifies. As and when the vibrations intensify further down, it actually takes the form, the structure of a form. And that is what we call it as a manifest creation. This continued to develop in man too, and finally led to the formation of strong knots, which are now difficult to undo except by the special power of will. Being entangled in these knots, man assumes a form which reflects grossness at the very surface. Now, I want you to underline this. Being entangled in these knots, man assumes a form which reflects its grossness at the very surface. Please keep this sentence in mind because that will come in handy in due course of time for you. The external atmosphere and the environment also affect it, putting it into actions and counteractions, which brings from it back towards the simplicity gets enshrouded within it. All these combined together form a snare which keeps man entrapped in it. The perfect calmness that existed before creation was disturbed by the effect of the still, which led to the formation of forms. Since all created things had brought with them a reflection of the real power, their action was also similar to those of the cosmic powers which were set into motion by the effect of the still. Thus, a spider's web began to be formed. Every particle in its composition possesses the power and will continue to do so till the time of its return to the origin comes. So, if anybody wants to elaborate or if you want to ask any question on this particular paragraph, you can ask. Otherwise, I will proceed further. Because it's not an examination question, but it's something that might be useful for you to get more clarity on the topic, how creation happened. But then this topic of how creation happened has been repeated at multiple places. So you will get another opportunity to look at it. When man was created, his condition was dormant. The dormant elements which he had brought with him had no manifestation. Gradually, the powers inherited by him began to develop, and the same original thought that had caused the primary stir being present in man began to manifest itself in proportion to its magnitude. It began to display its action similar to those related with the divine. But the divine will being directed downwards, man's thought took a contrary trend and began to build up its own creation. Since he took up the opposite course, all actions that he undertook were in contrast to those of the nature. This led to the formation of the individual network, which, in respect of purity, was in contrast to that of divine, though the action in both the cases were almost the same. The action from the divine is the same as the individual will, but only thing is they are flowing in opposite directions. Since they are flowing in opposite directions, man goes on becoming more and more grosser. That is what happens. In essence, when the man becomes more and more grosser, they lose the purity. The return of God's creation will come into effect when the time limit fixed by the divine will expire. And the returns of the man's creation, the network interwoven by him, will be possible only when he nullifies the force of the vibrations which he has set up for their formation. Since the vibrations set up by man were contrary to those of the divine, their crudely grosser form came down into man's being, whereas the divine vibrations, being finely subtler, retained their original character. The difference between the two kinds of vibration is that the former possessed a perversive tendency and the latter is the same as it originally had. So there are two different things. That's why we keep talking about it. In the later part of the Sahaj philosophy, there is a Babaji talks about two creations, divine creation and a man's creation. They are proceeding simultaneously but in opposite directions. And like the divine will continue, the creation will persist till the divine will is operative. Till the man's will to be operative in this particular direction is there, the man's creation also continues. When the man's creation needs to be brought to an end, the will which is put behind the creation also needs to be turned in the opposite direction. Then the man's creation actually collapses or goes away. All the powers residing in the absolute are present in man because his thought force comprised of all the particles that were present at the time of the main stir. But since they possess an inward tendency, their working took a different course and the faculties possessed by him began to be utilized in the reverse way. All this combined together promoted the growth of the intricacies. Every particle of it became strong and powerful like that of God's manifestation. In this way, man has brought into being a tiny creation of its own. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದೇರ್ಸ್ ಎ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಲೇಕ್. Suppose one stone drops into the center of the lake. There is a still lake, but the ability of the water to move is still there, latent in the water. Latent motion is there in the water, although the water is not moving as such. When the stone drops, that point where the stone drops is the point of creation. What happens? The waves start kind of rippling outwards in the outward direction. This is the divine creation. Now, you look at something else. When the stone drops, suppose one water drop moves from that place where the stone dropped and it falls on another place in the same lake. What then happens? That water drop which has now fallen in a different place creates its own set of waves. Now, this wave and that wave actually are opposite to one another. They actually come and clash with one another. At some places they align with one another. At some places they clash with one another. This wave which are formed by this water droplet coming out and falling in a different place in the pond is the man's creation. The waves, they are tiny in nature compared to the divine, where the stone fell in the center and you had big waves going around to the periphery of the lake. So this is a very easy, simple way of understanding the divine creation and the man's creation simultaneously happening side by side. All his faculties being thus animated grew strong and restive, and his mind and thoughts began to cooperate with them. This resulted in the creation of a world of thoughts. The balance was disturbed and a conflicting tendency began to develop. Our faculties now induces him to walk in the open, another stops him from doing so on the ground of catching cold, the third one presents another view, the fourth one still another. The fifth one begins to think of earning money, the sixth one suggests undertaking some employment. The seventh one dissuades him from undertaking excessive hard work for the purpose. The eighth one recommends the establishment of cordial attachment with some rich relations so as to capture his heart and offer him inducement to transfer his entire wealth to him. Another faculty comes forward to declare that all this is quite useless as long as he does not get married and have children to enjoy that wealth. He finally gets married and his children too have children too. Now the problem of their education comes in and they grow up. So we grow on multiplying. So there are multitudes of thoughts which rise. Now, Babuji says, if you become aligned to one thought, the thought of the reality, then the thought force associated with multiple thoughts gradually starts receding and the thoughts will start settling down. This is another way of getting rid of the thoughts. Align yourself to reality. Fix your goal to the reality and allow the thought force to go only in the direction of the reality. Then the other thoughts do not get the energy that they require to raise up to the surface. Then they all kind of settle down and they will all kind of wither away like unwatered leaves in the plant. Further, now Babaji gives two stories here. Further, hearing of the nice acting of one Jamila, he was tempted to go to the theater. He went there and witnessed the show several times. The coquettish moments of Jamila captured his heart and he was induced to attend the show again and again. Everything of Jamila began to attract his heart. This led to the commencement of love. Now he begins to pine over the same thought, giving further strength to it by turning it into his habit. The network thus began to grow more intensified, and the habit excited in him a tendency to look upon every similar being as Jamila. Now he begins to think of having sufficient money enough to satisfy his lusty desires, but the constant thought of Jamila offered him no time for earning money by lawful means. He at last began to think of stealing, but at the same time feared prosecution and imprisonment. But the thought of Jamila had caught him so tightly that at last he resorted to stealing an unfair means. You remember one of the prayerful suggestions that Daji gives? Daji says, correct thinking, right understanding, honest approach to life. That honest approach will come only when our thoughts are clear and our intellect is purified. When we develop viveka, then we get the right understanding. Correct thinking comes first, then you get the right understanding, then eventually you will get the honest approach to life. Without correct thinking and right understanding, we will never get the honest approach to life. Now imagine what he originally was and what he has finally been led to by the effect of his thoughts, which had entrapped him so tightly. Similar incidents added further to the intricacies of the net, giving greater strength to it by the effect of the thought, which fermented them all the more. The grossness went on increasing. Its resultant effect led to the development of further evils like passion, anger, lust, etc. In short, a complete conglomerate was formed. The retracing from it has now can be effected only by the process of casting away all that he has taken it previously and by removing perversion of the thought by fixing it firmly in the right direction. This is what we spoke about earlier on, fixing the thought in the direction of the reality. Then these thoughts will gradually wither away. Other thoughts will gradually wither away. Now, since this diversion of thought is beyond the capacity of a common man, he should attach himself to some great personality who is himself firmly established in the highest plane beyond all possibilities of fall. The downward tendencies of thought indicates that one has descended to a lower plane, assuming its gross form. In such a case, it is quite essential for him to get himself attached to one of his fellow beings with faith and devotion so that his downward tendency may be mended by his influence. This will relieve him of all his distracting thoughts. He must also cultivate habits which will be conducive to his efforts for shattering the network. For instance, the ear should only hear noble talks. The eye should only see which is pure and good. The heart should only be inclined towards that which is virtuous. There may be many such other things which will automatically come to his knowledge if he is after it. Besides this, he must also put in his own sincere effort to shatter the network. At every stage, there are practices and modifications for this purpose, but a strong will and confidence are essential everywhere. At different chakras or plexus, there are various knots in this network and still more are under formation. So remember, knots are not always constant in nature. At different chakras, multiple knots can be formed and can be unformed. So we always keep forming a new knots and we keep untying old knots. So knots are different to some extent compared to the chakras or the plexus. Knots we can create newly and we can also lose of the old knots. But chakras can consist of multiple knots. Just remember that. He is written about it in this particular place. We had this discussion in one of the preceptors meeting about the chakras versus the knots. Knots can be formed and unformed. But chakras take a lot more time to kind of unfold. For shattering them, the help and the support of one who has shattered his own is really invaluable. The theory deserves careful study. These being mysteries so far are now revealed so that people may ponder over them and bring them into practice. After dealing with the subject, my humble request to you, the reader, is that you should try to re-own the latent power, which is very quintessence of the nature, by breaking up the network interwoven by yourself. Taking up for the ideal, the simplicity of nature, which is before everybody's view, you should set to work for the attainment of the goal in such a way that all senses, having merged in, may become synonymous with that which remains after the fading away of the previous impressions. Then alone you can think of yourself as diverted towards him in the true sense. So the faculty should go back to their dormant state, which is what they were when we started our journey. The faculties of the senses should go back to their dormant state. The only method can be one that I have described above. One must go on reducing the activities, shaking off all superfluities that has entered into his being for the purpose of shattering his individual network and assuming the purest state one has to finally to acquire. This is possible only when he associates himself with one who, having shattered his own network, has had enough swimming in the infinite. So this is again talking about the necessity of aligning ourselves to the master more closely. So that the more closer the alignment with the master, the more easier it becomes for the network to be shattered. And for us to work towards shattering our network by ourselves, by our own self-effort. So the network can be shattered by two things, by the power of the master or by using our own willpower and working on each of these network and shattering them. So self-effort is one way of shattering the network, and getting the help of the master's power is another way of shattering the network. This is in fact nothing but what Babuji in other places called as individual pralaya. If you want to get in alignment with the divine, we have to create the pralaya of all the structures that we have created so that we can align ourselves to the divine. Okay, so Vijay brother is here. So I hope that he is seeing that we are going through the third and fourth maxim. So he's going to send you all the homework as early as possible by tonight and tomorrow. And I want you to learn to do some plays. Play means you play with the book. Whatever Vijay brother sends, don't answer it directly. You open the book and see where it is. And then you will get used to identifying what is where in the book. That will make it easy for you when you go into the exam for the open book section. I want all of you to develop this habit of looking through the book to search for different things in the book. Then it becomes easier for you to remember where what is. Then that will save you time in the examination hall. So do that every day at least 10 to 20 times. Look for different things in the book. And it is, we were playing when we were young, even few years back, we were playing, opening the book, odd number and even number, you know that? You remember that game that we used to play? Now I
Yes,
want to
brother.
play that game. You play that game, you will learn also, you will also pass the exam also. But don't quote me outside. Raghu brother has told me to play with the book. Don't quote me that. Okay. But I want you people to get good at going straight to the point in the book without having to search too much. In other words, you should become good at knowing where what is. That will become easier for you to write the part B of the exam. That will save time for you. Part A is mostly related to the practice. In general, you know what we are seeing. Majority of the people are doing very well in part A. You are getting around 60-70%, most of the people. In fact, many people have scored 80-90% in part A. Where you are actually losing out marks is in the part B section, which is in fact supposed to be easier because it's an open book section. But that's where you are actually losing out on the marks. Why are you losing out on the marks? Because you are not making very accurate in your mind regarding where what is in the book. So you end up searching a lot through the book for one particular question and you end up losing time. Then in the panic, you start attempting more questions by guesswork and then you start losing marks. So whatever extra you gained in the part A is being lost in part B. This is what is happening to all candidates, majority. So that's why I want you to develop it. In fact, I've told all the youth group yesterday, start doing this play every day. They have already started doing the things. So I want you also, people also. This only I got the idea yesterday when I was taking the group reading for the youth group. So we should make the reading and learning fun-filled activity. It should be playful. It should be joyous. Then it becomes easier for us to know where what is. Okay. So I'll stop here as far as the maxim 4 is concerned. Any questions on that? Maxim 4 is essentially about nature and simplicity. Just remember these two words. Very, very important. And again, you might get a master following or fill in the blanks. They might ask you to write the maxim also, or they might just give you simplicity. What is the simplify your life so as to be identical with nature. So they might just quote that and say which maxim is it. So that's also another possible way of asking you the question. Okay. Yeah,
Brother, brother, sorry, as you told that each maxim is either meditation or prayer, we should identify. So this will be meditation, brother. So this will be meditation.
Oh,
Okay, brother.
they don't necessarily, Balaji does not talk about meditation as such in this. It's more about goal orientation. He's never mentioned the word meditation here much in the entire maxim. Brother, you want to add something, Vijay? Anything you want to add? I don't think it's something related to.
From the Heartfulness magazine articles, one slide I will share, which
Yeah,
makes
please.
that question clear.
I've just allowed you. Please share
Okay.
that. 1 minute, 1 minute. Okay, go ahead.
Let me know when you can see the screen, right?
Yeah, we can see the screen. Yeah.
So Daji in these articles actually he groups them easier. How to write this? Just one here. Okay. So he actually groups these maxims in this way. 1, 2, 3 are about practice. 4 and 5 are essential values. 6, 7, 8 is regarding behavior. Maxim 9 is leadership. And 10 is continuous improvement. So it becomes easy for you to remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And behavior means this is, brotherhood, how we take food, all these things come in. 4 and 5 is simplicity and truthfulness. So this is easier. The practice part is here. Sorry, I'm not got the pointer. So the practice is this. Essential values are 4 and 5. 6, 7, 8 is how we eat food and not being revengeful and these things. And 9 is, of course, the leadership, how we can mold our living so that we exhibit these leadership qualities. And 10 is regarding prayerfulness. So that is how we should look at it. Second thing which I was thinking of was there is another question which generally comes in. Okay, just a minute. Yeah. What is the relationship between prayer, which is maxim 2, and fixing the goal? So Daji says they are very intricately related. We establish a connection with the source when we practice prayer. And fixing the goal is a conscious process of keeping that connection alive and allowing it to be enlivened more and more. So this goal setting, he has extensively talked. So if you find Babuji's writing, in maxims a bit difficult, please read this Heartfulness magazine articles for each of the maxims, and it will really make your understanding much better. That's what I struggle, because I was always struggling with this book. But once we got these articles from Daji, things are much, much easier to understand. Also, his video recordings are there, I think you have read, let me check. See, he referred to these guidelines for heartful living. So these are given at the end of each of the Heartfulness magazine articles in this collector's edition, December 24. So you can view those videos also. So it's an excellent resource. And that is all I just wanted to tell.
But what brother showed, no? I'm just talking now from the exam perspective. From the exam perspective, they have never asked these questions in this way about behavior or development or continuous
Yeah,
improvement.
yeah, yeah.
So this is for our learning. From a learning
Yes.
perspective, I think it's a much more easier way of
Easy to learn. Remember.
exactly. But from the point of view of the this time, I'll just tell you what question had come. This exam, last exam, they gave certain scenarios and asked them to work out which maxim does it belong to, or which
Oh,
maxim does it apply. So if you can look at it from this perspective, what brother showed, you might be in a better position to answer. Say, for example, what he said now, that 6, 7, 8 is related to behaviors. So if you see things related to behavior, you can immediately identify it as related to 6, 7, 8 maximum. That's where you are going to search. Other way of doing it is, which are all the maxims which are related to prayer? Which are all the maxims which are related to goal? Which are all the maxims which are related to nature? So these are the questions that they have asked in the past. And there are quite more than one maxim for many of these things. Answer. And they would want you to identify all those maxims. So if, for example, if prayer is related to, say, 2, 3 maxims, then they would want you to identify those 2, 3 maxims. Then you will get 3 marks. If you identify only one maxim, you will get only 1 mark. So if you are wrongly identified, you might probably lose half mark also, quarter mark also. So that's why I keep emphasizing about the need to identify which maxim does it pertain to. So in terms of that, whatever sister you said, no, fourth maxim is related more to nature and simplicity and goal rather than any particular meditation. He doesn't talk much about meditation here. Okay. So shall we proceed into fifth maxim now? Always be truthful, accept miseries as they come from God for your own good, and be thankful. Now, truthfulness really implies the sense of presenting oneself in the true colors. This is a state in which a man exclaims spontaneously, "It is as it is." No words, however, can express this condition in any way. This is a state which is, in the true sense, is the reality. Even to call it as a state is to blemish its true character. The word state applied to it is not appropriate. This is in fact the point at which all the powers are drawn in and accumulated at the time of Pralaya, and nothing but absolute reality remains in existence. Now, is the truth our ultimate goal? I'm asking a question now. Is truth our ultimate goal?
No, no,
no.
brother.
No. So, what is our ultimate goal?
Reality.
And reality comes after the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
What are all the things that we have to let go of in order to reach the reality?
Mm,
You have to let go of the truth. Just now you said
Gross.
you have to cross the truth and go further.
Yes.
And what else you have to let go of?
Identity.
Identity.
You will not let
Ego.
go of identity. Your identity will remain till the Mahapralaya. That's not going to change. It will be there.
Gross. Ego in the first one.
Ego would have metamorphosized into back into its original form, which is the
Samskara.
identity. Anything else? Sorry?
Samskara. Samskaras.
This is universal answer. Okay. Taken. Anything
Knowledge.
else that you have to let go of?
Knowledge. Knowledge.
Again, that is also another universal answer. Let go of. Anything else? I'm looking for 3 things. You said one thing, truth. Other 2 things, many people confuse as their goal and which is not our goal. We need to be very clear in our mind that these 3 are not our goal. One, you have said truth. The other 2. Okay. Other 2 are consciousness and the seed of consciousness.
Seed of consciousness.
None of these 3 are our goal. Please remember this. Neither consciousness, nor the seed of the consciousness, nor truth is the goal. Now, why I brought this point here is, if you read this paragraph here in the first paragraph, you will get confused. What does he say? Truthfulness really implies the sense of presenting one's own self in its true color. It is as it is. It is the state which is in the true sense is the reality. Now, we just now spoke about the fact that in other chapters, Babaji has written that we have to go beyond truth. And now he's talking about the truth itself as being the reality. Now, don't get confused between these 2. That's why the Bliss brought this point. Now, He explains further here. The word reality, as I have used it, does not only convey the true sense, as all feelings and perceptions end there. If we call it as a power, even then a material cloak is set around it. It is almost inexplicable. If you use the word negation for it, even then a faint reflection of something remains in view. Now, existence is the only word left for conveying the sense. But if we fix our thought on it, even then the faint idea of something persists, and thus the same consciousness of materiality is revived to some extent. If we banish both these views from our thought, even then something remains at the root. Nothing can thus express it in words, it is as it is. So, Maxim 5, he's talking about the reality, truthfulness and reality. It can be
Last
imitated
exam,
upon.
they had this question. It is everybody, I think, had a tough time to locate where it is.
Exactly. That's why I'm just making this point again. It is as it is. Please look at Maxim 5. Please underline it. He's repeated it twice here in 2 pages. It is as it is. It can be imitated upon only by keeping one's self off from every concept. It depends upon practice so that one may bring himself up to it by means of proper action and right behavior. The state of settledness is helpful in it, but that too must end before one reaches the destination. Then alone can consciousness of reality be had, and when consciousness also ends, we may then consider ourselves to having arrived at its primary stage. So, what do? We cultivate a habit of truthfulness so that our actions and dealings may be in consonance with the state related above, which is in consonance with reality, or just as it is, and it as it is in the dealings of nature. Devotion now starts from this point, and it remains the devotee of his devotional duties, and the master's remembrance gets implanted upon his mind. Even as the harshness of the beloved is appealing to a lover, since it contains a gentle tenderness which reflects love all through and attracts him all the more, the rebuffs of the beloved are very pleasant to him, offer him greatest joy. So now he's going to the lover and the beloved example. So even when the lover scolds you, the beloved feels happy. Even when the beloved scolds the lover feels happy. Because along with the scolding, there is the remembrance of the lover or the beloved there. If we take a cruder view of these scoldings, they assume the form of painful experience which people call by the name miseries, which are so easily endurable to a true lover who takes them with delight, even in their grossest form. When this state is acquired, the underlying emotional trend converts itself into a state of gratitude. This indicates how nicely he has welcomed them and is now so happy with them because they have now come down from his beloved. So, when we take the painful experiences as miseries, there is an emotional burden attached to it. When we take the painful experiences as something coming from the beloved, the emotional content gets converted into a feeling of gratitude. That's very important because many times people might intellectually accept the miseries, but they don't know how to handle the emotional burden behind it. So intellectually, we might say, okay, this misery is good for me. Let me welcome it. We might say that intellectually at one level. But if we are not able to work on the emotional burden behind it and convert that into gratitude, then you cannot say that the maxim 5 have taken hold in your heart. Okay? Do not complain of sorrow because it is far from adequate. Happiness cannot be had without undergoing sufferings. From a poet. This results in all joy and he begins to abide in it. After sufficient practice, it becomes a second nature and its consciousness too drops off. The glamour too passes away. When this is attained, there remains nothing but the swimming in the sphere of reality, and further on, the swimming too becomes extinct. The power generated by the habit of forbearance helps him a great deal in his pursuit, and he enters the sphere described above. When what happens next has already been dealt with sufficiently. In our system, this stage is often attained by an abhyasi. Often attained by an abhyasi. It offers him pleasure and he begins to appreciate it. It helps his entry into the above mentioned circle where he begins to have an experience of calmness of the mind. Thus, he begins to realize that all these things which had the outer form of misery or scolding, had come down only for his good. They are really invaluable to us when they come as gifts. Being overjoyed to have them, one is naturally inclined to express feelings of gratitude for him. ಸರಿ ಎಲ್ರೂ ಬೈಗುಳನ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ದ ಸ್ಕೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಅವರ್ ವಿಜಯ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಬ್ರದರ್ ಸ್ಕೋಲ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಯು ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಇಟ್ Okay. I have not seen Vijay Kumar scold anyone. So if he does scold you, it is a real blessing. That's what I'm saying. At least from whatever interaction I've had with Vijay, I have not seen him scold anyone. Maybe he's very quiet. He escapes after the satsang from the ashram immediately, so that I don't see him in other emotional states. No problem. I think it's fairly straightforward. I think if you just remember the maxim, the first two lines of the maxim, always be truthful, accept miseries as coming from God for your own good, and be thankful. I think that's a fairly straightforward one. So, truthfulness and relating to reality. That's what this maxim is. Maxim 5. Truthfulness and reality. And about miseries. Okay. So, shall we finish the maxim 6 also today? Because we have another meeting at 8 o'clock. So, the central team is holding some changes in the SNP 3 program. So, there is a meeting of that today. Okay. So, we have another 10 minutes. I think we can finish this maxim 6 also. Know all people as thy brethren and treat them as such. The perfection of human nobility lies in the devotee being always within the sphere of devotion. All these things descending from the origin should be treated as coming from the same source. Just as children born to the same mother are related to each other in one and the same way, so also are all bound together by the same common tie of brotherliness and are all related to each other in the same way. The underlying sense had never been fully grasped. All are connected with the same reality, the central point by the effect of motion which set everything into action. No substantial disconnection existed between them. It was all really the effect of our own thoughts and actions that converted brothers and friends into strangers. It was due to our own feeling of selfishness that made them appear like aliens. This engendered separative feelings must now therefore be removed so that brotherly relations may now be revived. This is one of the ways which ensconced the devotee. You remember, one of the first coverings, the finest of the coverings that the soul gets is the idea of separateness. Lalaji has written about it in The Truth Eternal. The idea of separateness, which creates anxiety and then which creates the desire. They all go together hand in hand. Sad. Just as the feeling of remoteness sets in by itself among the members of a family when the numbers increases, in the same way, our brothers and relatives begin to appear more and more remote by the lapse of time and distance, and the state which is common to all vanishes from the sphere of thought. Only its solid form remains to view, which we begin to love as far as we can. But love includes within it a latent feeling of enmity, so that the current of thought begins to settle down and it affects it adversely. Everything began to appear differently and affected separation from one another. All this contributed to the formation of our individual network, on account of which we lost consciousness of the currents that flow into this very being, every being appearing in man in the form of feelings. In other words, as we become more and more separate, we cannot actually feel for one another. That's what happens. When we become more closely bound with one another, we can actually feel for one another. Okay. Now, these feelings will be in a grosser state in the Pinda Pradesh. As we move to the higher points, it becomes more finer, more refined. The development of feelings of universal brotherhood means the breaking up of the individual networks that separated one from the other and the close adherence to the tie of fraternity. Now, this is something that you can put to test when you go to Kanha for the Bandara. How easily can you mingle with one another? Do you have a lot of hesitation when you mingle with one another, or are you able to mingle with one another without any hesitation, without any idea of separateness? If you are able to do so, then you can say that you have been able to break up the individual network that separated one from the other. It will naturally lead to mutual association and greater attachment, and our dealings with one another will be molded accordingly, ensuring greater peace and contentment to everyone. How nice would it be to have it thus? That's why you remember recently Daji spoke about what Sajmal will stand out for. It will stand out for unity. Now, if it has to be unity, the idea of separateness has to be given way. More brotherly attitude has to be developed. More brotherly relationship has to be developed. Having accomplished this, we proceed on further, which also now becomes easier to realize. This world is in fact a reflection of the other world. When this one is mounted properly, its effect extends on to the other world also, whose reflection it is, and that too will begin to get purified. This will greatly smoothen our task and help us further in the attainment of the ideal. Our success here will lead to our success there. So now he's talking about how the two worlds are related. This world and the other world being a reflection of one another. If we correctly mold ourselves here, we would have correctly molded ourselves in the other world also simultaneously. By the world that casts the reflection, I mean the Brahmanda or the astral world, where everything happens in the astral form prior to its coming to this world in the material shape. In Brahman, it comes down similarly from the next higher stage, and therefrom the still higher, and so on. Thus, by proper modification of this layer, last layer, which is the Pind Pradesh, the effect it is carried to each of the higher layers successively up to the very highest one, which begins to get purified in the easiest and the most natural way. So, in other words, if we properly mold ourselves in the Pind Pradesh, then that purity gradually extends to the Brahmanda and then Parabrahmanda and to the higher states also, up to the highest. And the purity develops more and more naturally. Okay? Okay, that's good. So I think we have done pretty good today. We started from 254, we have come to 270. Okay, that's good. So 4 maxims, the brother will give you questions. 3, 4, 5, 6. Unfortunately, I wanted to finish more today by having 1.5 hour session, but I joined late, unfortunately. So, brother, we have extended the session by half an hour. Otherwise, we are not going to finish it. So, I have told them we'll extend it by half an hour. So, 1 hour for the maxims, the towards infinity and efficacy, because we can go slow there and explain certain things. But Sahajmarg philosophy contains many repetitions from other books. So, we can half an hour read through that every day and finish it faster because it's a repetition anyway. Okay, so that's what we are planning. So hopefully from tomorrow we'll not have this problem. Tomorrow I think there is a satsang. So I don't know if I say don't attend tomorrow satsang and come and do your examination preparation. I don't know how people will feel, but that also will be controversial. But as far as I am concerned, I'll tell you one thing very simply. When the exams are there right in front of you in 2 weeks' time, exam should be your focus. Attend the Sunday satsang. If you meet the Wednesday satsang, nothing is going to happen in one session. You will be better prepared for the exams. But I will leave it open to you people. If you say that you want to finish the satsang and then join, because otherwise it will be like 8 o'clock. Till 8 o'clock, you will not be able to join. So, because 7 to 7:30, and then by the time you come back home, it will be late. Other option will be to continue like what we did today, start at 6:30, finish at 8 o'clock. That might be useful for the next 2 weeks. Think about it. If you're okay, we can start at 6:30 tomorrow. What do you people say?
Yes,
Okay,
brother.
brother, come in.
Yes, brother.
We'll
Okay to
start
start
at
at 6:30.
We'll start at 6:30.
Unfortunately, please forgive me today because I told you one of the guests had come from Gangavati. A preceptor had come from Gangavati. He had come all the way from Gangavati. I had to spend some time with him. He said that he's going to leave at 6:30, but he did not show any sign of leaving at 6:30. And then I had to be with him. So unfortunately, that is